I'm Laurel Stark,
And I'm Victoria Rosselli.
and this is an isolated talk on mental health and creativity. And before we jump in, I just thought we'd give you a little more context on ourselves so you can decide if you want to listen to us.
I'm Victoria. I'm a half Colombian, Florida-born art director at FCB Chicago. I stand for inclusivity and am passionate about not only changing the conversation around mental health, but championing mental health issues in our industry. And in my spare time, I work on the Fellow app, which is an app-based professional community for women in advertising.
And I'm Laurel. I'm a freelance creative director who's based in the Bay Area. I'm also the co-founder of the Next Creative Leaders, which is a portfolio competition that's held in partnership with the One Club for Creativity and the 3% Conference. We honor women and non-binary creative talent. I've been lucky enough to work DEI efforts both on and off the job, which means I'm always kind of looking for ways to bring inclusivity and empathy into everything I do. And that brings me to our topic. We're here today, socially distanced and obviously in the middle of a pandemic, to talk about mental health.
So mental health affects everyone. It affects you, me, your CEO, and even the award-winning creative director who seems to have their life together. And when our mental health is good, it fuels our creativity and brings out the best in us. But when we're struggling with our mental health, it affects really every area of our life and can make it particularly difficult to work. So despite this, it's often something that is swept under the rug, or even worse, it's hidden. So mental health is really the elephant in the room that no one seems to address.
And right now, everything that we normally feel, if you're somebody that has any mental health issue, is exacerbated thanks to COVID-19 and the shelter in place. So we need to start talking as an industry about what we're experiencing mental health wise. And while it's important to note that neither Victoria or I are mental health professionals ourselves, we're both creatives, as we stated. We are both people that have been diagnosed and treated for mental health issues. And since we can only speak from our personal experiences, that's where we're going to start today.
So when I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety and ADHD when I was a young teen, there was a lot of guilt involved. I felt selfish for struggling with mental health issues while I lived a privileged life and had a normal upbringing and supportive parents. And having ADHD makes you think you're incapable of getting even the simplest tasks done because you often lose focus, and which made me feel stupid a lot of the time. It took years of medication and therapy to not only gain acceptance, but to understand that I could still grow up to be successful despite my struggles. And I've learned that even the people who seem to have it all figured out can also struggle with mental health. And when I fast forward to my adulthood, I struggled with my mental health as I experienced withdrawals when I began tapering off my medication. I often found it difficult to work, and I covered this up for my ECD out of fear of being seen as weak. Ultimately, my performance suffered, and if I had only spoken up, something could have been done about it. Because of that, I decided to take the opportunity to speak up to the entire industry by writing a piece about this experience for Campaign US, because I really wanted people to learn from my experience and want to continue to encourage people to be open about this.
Yeah. And for me, I was diagnosed also as a young teen with general anxiety disorder and depression, and also an eating disorder, which can sometimes be a coping mechanism for people that have anxiety. As a high performer for most of my life, it was a part of me that I wanted to hide and I felt a lot of shame around. I really wanted to just take away that part of my narrative about myself and just hide it because I didn't want it to be perceived as a weakness. I wanted people to think I was capable and a good student and then a good performer at work as I grew up. But because I was hiding it, it only meant that I prolonged and in many cases kind of exacerbated my struggles into my adulthood. And because of that, I experienced a lot of loneliness when I could have had support and accommodation. And worse, as somebody who considers herself a change agent and a leader within our industry, I think a lot about how if I had handled this earlier for myself and kind of incorporated it more into myself and spoken more honestly about this earlier, I could have helped other people. And that's something that, really weighs on me. So the truth is, I'm still learning to have empathy for myself and the ways that my brain and body cope differently. But I'm realizing now that what I once perceived to be a weakness about myself is actually a superpower. So much of my innate talent as a storyteller and as a creative leader are rooted in my ability to feel deeply for other people, to put myself into other people's shoes. And a big part of that is because I felt so many of those human feelings myself. And that means that I can tell stories that touch other people and connect with people that are different than me. And that's something that's so important to the work that we do.
Yeah, and I think talking about mental health is more important for creatives now during COVID than ever before, because everyone is dealing with different types of stress during this pandemic. We have working parents who are balancing not only the pressure of their job, but their child's needs. And there are people who have been laid off or furloughed and stressed about when their next paycheck will be. And I'm lucky enough to still have a job, but now I'm putting this pressure on myself to overperform and to be always on to show that I'm billable and essential to my agency. And I'm also experiencing sadness and guilt for feeling sad because I have a job and some people don't.
Yeah. On the other side of the spectrum, I am one of those people that has a small child at home, and that's new for me. I never aspired to be a stay-at-home mom. I've always, been so in love with my career and wanted to be able to show her, what a strong working woman looked like. So for me, it's been a huge shift. I'm dealing with the stress of juggling childcare as well as my work. And as a freelancer, I've had opportunities disappear, and there is that anxiety around what if I don't get the next job? What if I'm not staying busy? So I'm feeling those sorts of things. And I think that while everybody is experiencing something different, I think we can across the board know that everyone in our industry is experiencing some level of grief and stress. We're feeling lonely, we're feeling exhausted, and we all are mourning the life that we once had because things have shifted dramatically. I think that COVID has really brought up mental health stressors for everyone. And it's obviously compounded them for people that are already struggling. But there's a silver lining here. And I think that the point is, things are so untenable right now and things are hard for everyone. And that gives us the opportunity to really look at what needs to change and how we can move into the future, knowing that we can create a future that's more sustainable for everybody.
Mm-hmm. And as mental health has become even more of an issue during COVID, brands and agencies are trying to support in many different ways, either by offering tools and resources or overtly signaling that employees should take care of themselves. So I know some agencies have provided free headspace to their employees. Alternatively, Headspace also just launched a campaign giving free membership to anyone who's unemployed, which is, I think, a massive thing that they're doing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And I recently received an email from someone in leadership, and at the bottom of their signature, it said, if you receive this email after hours, you should not feel pressured to reply immediately, as we do feel the need to always be on while working from home. Implementing something that simple can really set the tone for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And on my side, I've seen, I've had friends talking about the things that agencies are doing out here on the West Coast. I know that my husband works for a company which has implemented like a COVID job number, which just helps out so that people don't feel, like you were saying, that pressure to constantly be billable. And it's a way of like overtly signaling, hey, if you need time for your mental health, if you need time to care for a child or a sick parent, or you need a break, or you're feeling overwhelmed, or you have to go to the grocery store, or any of the things that have now become like a bigger part of our life and more stressful, you can bill it to that. And that's like a way of, one, making space for yourself, but also two, signaling, giving a tool to agency leadership to really see what their people need. And I think that that's such a cool way of handling it, which, it's like you said, like the signature signaling that. Another thing that I've heard about is, people having more increased touch bases with their manager, where literally the only touch base is to talk about how they're coping. And it's just like a 10-minute thing. And it's like, and the manager is actually the one that starts and is honest about what they're struggling with right now, which kind of helps sets the tone and make with that, the power dynamic, making it okay for the person to open up about what they're feeling as well. And I think things like that, even though they're small, like they're small tools, it really does kind of encourage that dialogue. And I think right now we're all still figuring out what the tools are, right? Like this is new for everyone. It's new for companies. There's so much involved in figuring out how to even help people work remotely. So there's a lot of ops involved in getting to this point as well. But I think regardless of the tools that people are providing, I think it's really important that what comes out of this is that we talk more about the ways that we're struggling, that we give feedback on the tools that they're offering and if they're helpful or not, and why they're helpful or why they're not helpful. I really think that this needs to be a two-way conversation between employers and employees, and especially in a field like ours, where we have the power to signal to culture the ways that things could and should be. I think that we really need to get it right for ourselves. And as an industry, we have the power to influence what everyone is doing outside of our industry. And I think that this is an opportunity to get it right for us and to get it right for everybody else.
Definitely. And as creatives, regardless of the deliverables, we are being asked to relate to the consumer, but by not talking about mental health, we're holding back from relating to ourselves and each other, as we're ignoring like a reality of humanity. And we're asked to come up with solutions, but to do that, we need to talk about the realities we're facing in order to do that. And mental health is no different. And not dealing with mental health works against us being effective communicators, and it keeps us from actually solving the problem. And quite frankly, we really just need to talk.
Yes, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I think, we are in May now, which is Mental Health Month, which makes this a very timely talk, but we're also, sorry, this is my cat scratching. Mental health, we're sharing. Come on, Katie. I think we're also in this place where most of us are 7 or 8 weeks into the quarantine right now, and things are really weighing on us. Like that's a long amount of time to have your life disrupted. And so right now there really is this urgency in starting this conversation around mental health and getting people comfortable with the idea of like, we need to talk now. We need to talk during Mental Health Month. We need to talk before we get into month 3 of this potentially, or before our lives are further disrupted. But I think we're really overcoming some big things here in order to feel comfortable, talking openly and honestly. There's so much shame and stigma around mental health. And that's why it's all the more important that leaders in our industry signal that it's okay to talk openly about our struggles, and that they signal that they know it's important to us and our business that we care for ourselves in those ways. And as creative professionals ourselves, we're really in tune with what leadership in our industry is signaling. And we've seen, obviously, Victoria's been kind of a champion and on the forefront of talking about mental health in our industry. And she's an art director. This isn't coming from a CCO. This is coming from somebody who's working her way up the ranks. And I think that we've noticed that industry leadership has been largely silent on this topic. And while we're catching, we're having more people talk about things like diversity and the need for parental leave and these types of things, mental health is still not something that we're talking about, even though it's affecting, all of us now, especially in COVID-19. So we've noticed that while we don't want to talk about the hard stuff, our industry leaders are happy to talk at length about the creative work. So we've seen that as an opportunity, and we are turning our mental health experiences into creative work to encourage discussion at a leadership level, which will make it easier for all of us to work openly and honestly towards a solution. Our project that we are hopefully launching next week is called Our Silent Partner. And it's a crowdsourced portfolio of creative work that acknowledges our mental health as a silent partner that we all work with, and illustrates our collective experiences, both living and working with mental health challenges, both before COVID, but also some pieces are focusing on the experience of working through that during COVID-19 as well.
And we really hope that this will be a platform to start a necessary conversation. And it's something that anyone can get involved with by submitting work around working through their mental health issues, or by introducing your agency leaders to our silent partner. We're inviting anyone and everyone to get involved in this conversation. And as we're wrapping this up, it's important to note that Laurel and I, we're not mental health professionals.
Nope.
We can definitely not. We can only speak from our own experiences, and we can't offer up all the solutions. So our sole hope in starting our silent partner and having this talk is to encourage people to have a conversation. And we hope that our silent partner is a resource to you, and we would love to be a resource for you as well. So you're welcome to reach out to either of us on Twitter or LinkedIn to continue this conversation. But we would like to thank you all for listening, and to remember to stay safe and take care of yourself.
Thank you guys. Take care of yourself out there.